Good afternoon. Welcome back from that break. This is still the POLITY reaching you live from Abuja. I've been joined in the studio now by Mr. Ibrahim Garba. He's a public policy analyst to speak on the state of the nation. Like I said at the beginning of the program, there are a host of issues, some happening over the weekend, some happening even just today as we speak. I'll be dealing with insecurity, dealing with the better educate and other issues at the moment. Good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me once again, and let me start by saying Happy New Year to you.
Indeed. It says Happy New Year. You know, with us Nigerians, it doesn't matter. Whenever we meet for the first time in a year, it's Happy New Year, even if it's in December.
Yes.
So, same to you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. So, we'll start from issues of the economy and attempts to stabilize it as best as possible. Recently, the CBN governor, Mr. Cardoso, finally announced the MPC meeting would hold sometime in a couple of weeks after weeks and months of delays. And this is coming after we saw the news statistics from the MBS that Nigeria is heading very closely to 30% inflation. That being said, there have been different talks of strategies to resolve this. And recently, the finance minister, Mr. Wale Edun, spoke about possible loans and grants. And it seemed to cause a bit of uproar because people were still wondering, at this point, why are we still, looking at borrowing and so on and so forth. So I'd like to get your thoughts on this and the calls really from various angles for restructuring of the loans and grants.
Oh, thank you very, very much. What a beautiful way to start this program. You mentioned Yemi Cardoso, our CBN governor, who is on track at the moment because he started on the right foot. What do I mean by that? He knew the economy. I knew that the economy is in bad shape. So when Mr. President brought him on board, yes, his job is cut out for him. This is what he's going to do. It's not about sitting down to warm the bench. It's about meeting all the stakeholders, reviewing some of these policies, and at the same time looking at areas who can improve within the economy. Don't forget that some of the products that were banned, some of them were lifted and all that, all in a bid to create room for competition. We cannot run a mono economy. It's not possible. Of course, over the years, it affected our GDP and all that. That is why you see the cost of living is so high. Inflation is, getting higher on a daily basis. So the CBN, has a lot of role to play because it's very critical. And just like you mentioned, the MPS meeting was delayed because you need to do a lot of recoveries. And that leads to querying and at the same time do an audit of what happened within 9 years of the administration of former CBN governor.
Do you think they could have been faster with it? It's been, we've not had a meeting since July 2023.
No, actually, you don't build on nothing. You start from somewhere. You need to take a look at some of the parameters that were used in the banking because every time we know the situation in the economy, but yet the percentage on borrowing is still on double digits, which in some cases, like during the COVID-19, even the US, crashed down to single digit as less as 5% on borrowing and all that. So you need to do that to cushion the effect on the economy. And just like you rightly pointed out, loans, well, we are not the only country borrowing from the World Bank and all that, but you need it to, boost your revenue at the same time improve on your infrastructure. And one of the reasons why government need to borrow is because of infrastructural development. We have loans from China, World Bank, and some other nations like that to help boost our economy. And at the same time, we have different grants from donor agencies and all that. But of major concern for some of us, is that the way and manner these monies are spent. You find that most of these loans, they go on meetings, advocacy, and all that, things that are not too relevant. You need to look at the real sector of the economy. Because when you acquire loan or when you are given a grant, especially within the MDAs, these funds are idle because the purpose to which it's meant for is not being used. If you borrow, or rather if you give me money, I should be at liberty to spend it on areas that need. And that is why of late we said, okay, there's a need for us to appeal to Mr. President, going by Section 130 of the 1999 Constitution, which gives him power as the CNC. Yes, he has the powers to invoke that section and say, oh, look, it's time for us to restructure some of these loans. What do I mean? What is about advocacy, what is about consultancy services, and this thing eating up almost 75% of the loan. Meanwhile, what you need this money for, the infrastructural development, you need it for the grassroots, at least empowerment programs. You need it to build institutions, primary health care centers, affordable drugs, housing and all that. So if you don't restructure these loans, at the end of the day, we are still going to find ourselves in a state whereby, well, the money is available, but you cannot spend the money. So if you go around some of these MDAs, they cannot cry out because, one, the funds are there, and you are budgeting on nothing, and you are looking at how you can implement the budget. And you discover that in a year, only about 25% of this budget is being implemented.
Right,
so that is why...
in all of this, some people even blame the World Bank. They blame the people donating the money. They say, why are you not taking account? Why are you not following up and so on? Is there any blame from them? Just the other day, I was at an event where the Minister of Health was speaking about the dangers of fruit bats and how there's possibility of pandemic arising from that. So he said that through the ministry, the NCDC would submit one proposal to a pandemic fund so instead of multiple agencies all going in, so it will be one time. So I'm wondering, is there more due diligence that needs to be done by those donating money to come and see? Is that really their duty, or does it lie on Nigeria to ensure that whatever they are putting out is detailed? And this restructuring you talked about, if an agency that wants to give a grant notices that you didn't spell things out this way, or majority of the money you want to use it for, like you said, consultancy and so on, do you think it would make sense to start seeing rejections to ensure that things are done better?
Well, I want you to understand something. Grants normally they are intervention and all that. And if you are requesting, underneath you must spell out why you need this money and what we are going to use, because we are going to do some kind of return on all these monies that are given to you. I like donor agencies when they give you money. It's not as if they will give you this money, you just dip your hand and start spending. It's not done that way. You must account for it. And at the same time, let me give you an example. During the pandemic, monies were made available for the pandemic purpose, for COVID-19, hospital drugs and all that. But at the same time, they were reserved, some funds that were left in the reserve. What are you supposed to do? You now call for restructuring. This money is available. We cannot return this money. It's in our coffers. Let us have a plan B, what we should do. As that is why I say the buck stops on the table of Mr. President. Ours is to appeal to him to look deeply into this, because as I'm talking to you now, the state of the economy. We still have to borrow from the World Bank to finance our budget for 2024. We still have to go to African Development Bank to source for $80 million and all that. So it's becoming more difficult. And that is why we said, yes, the Minister of Health is aware of this. He has been there at the global level. So he's in the best position to advise. But again, to make it work, you need to set up a committee to review most of these World Bank loans. When that is done, the report is made public, and at that point, it's okay. This is what should be done in this emergency situation.
So this committee, should that be under a particular ministry or an interministerial? No,
this is something that should be formed. A committee should be set up under the Ministry of Finance. Okay? when that is done, they will now look at the possibilities. We have this in reserve. We still have these other projects that we need to spend money on. We need to pay salaries. We need to take care of other infrastructure and all that. So when you do that, already you are giving Nigerians a breath of fresh air. There is a lot of pressure on the economy. The level of poverty is on the high. Education is expensive. Health is expensive. But I like what the coordinating minister of health is doing. It's a fantastic job he's doing there. And if you look at the plan he has, especially for PHCs across the nation, the 774 local government, he's talking about he's talking about also drug production and supply and all that. How can we cushion the effect? So these are some of the areas we want to panel beat so that we can get Nigerians a lot of refill. It's very important. And I will still use this medium to call on Mr. President. Please look at this issue because it's long overdue. Yes.
Fair enough. The president or this administration has done some level of seeking loans and thereabouts, so it will come in handy. This takes me to my next issue. Again, it's the reactions of persons, I believe, that really makes this story. The federal government is moving some offices or administrative offices to Lagos, which some persons have taken to not be coincidental because the president himself is from Lagos. We have some section of the CBN, we have the FAAN. And before I delve into how people are reacting, or let me go take give you a sneak peek. Some northern interests believe this is a targeted, this move is targeted at reducing their influence in some manner or another. What are your thoughts on this? The movement of these offices to Lagos, is it something you feel is being done in the best interest of the country, or do you agree with the speculation that there's something untoward going on?
Thank you. First and foremost, let us look at the realities on ground at the moment. The government is very, very slow in terms of administration. There are a lot of protocols, there are a lot of bureaucracies and all that. But side by side with that, you need to diversify the economy and you need to move closer to where, things can get done with speed, because we are talking about the ease of doing business. As you know, Lagos, I believe, is from statistics we gather, is the fastest growing city in the whole of Africa. And this is the trading point. And the federal government should take advantage of that because of the ports and other areas like that we have. This is our strength, our commercial strength. So it's not as if we are relocating the entire CBN. There are portions of the CBN that you need speed. You don't need to travel via aircraft, it takes a lot of time. So it's part of the strategies Cardoso is bringing on board. Look, there's a need for us to move to Lagos. We need to acquire assets. We need to look at the nature of Lagos, because Lagos is not lawless. The level of insecurity is very, very low compared to other parts of the country. And at the same time, Lagos is so structured that investors can easily come in, trade, and go back. And from there, they can begin to think about, okay, which areas do we need to invest our money? It's all about sitting down, discussing this and all that.
I don't think this is reducing the influence of the capital.
No, actually,
things like this, people say, draws people into the capital and gives us that status.
If you check, 75% of our monies derived and spent in Lagos. No doubt about that. It's a mega city. And it's because Lagos has taken its time to plan. We have Port Harcourt, we have Enugu, we have Kano, and other strategic areas like that. But we are talking about flows, inflows, outflows, and all that. And we are thinking about getting closer to those who believe have the capacity to turn around the economy. So if you move some offices to Lagos, I think it's in the best interest, because from what I know, Mr. President is very visionary. We should trust him, to carry out this out, and at the same time, we should trust his the process. If you don't know, when he came into, the first time when he became a governor, before he became a governor, rather, when he took over from Buba Marwa, the speed and agility of Buba Marwa compared to when Tinubu came into office was totally different. People in Lagos were like, oh, this man is Baba, go slow. I'm telling you, I'm taking you somewhere. So at that point, people calling him so many names. But if you check through his record, Tinubu, I would like to use this word, operate with something we call diesel power. It is somebody that as you start off the engine, you allow it to cool down a little bit. You know, as it's heating up gradually, then the vehicle is very charged to move on. So this is the same scenario playing itself out. And that is why when he came, he didn't announce to anybody when he removed the subsidy. Then after that, he slowed down again. Then the next thing is appointing ministers and all that. So everything is strategic. All you need to do is for Nigerians to believe in him, that this man has been there before. He knows about money. He knows about the economy. Trust him. Trust the process. And I don't want us to politicize this movement of offices to Lagos. It's not every office now. We're talking about business offices, something that will attract investment, something that will, you know, help us move with speed, because at this point, honestly, the level of poverty is endemic. So you need somebody that will help you turn around this. And I believe he has started very, very well. You can see it from the indices which we have right now. You can see it from the success he has recorded since he came into power. You know, you know,
some might disagree, you know, particularly as we started the issue with inflation. But when you talked about him slowing down a bit, you know, in his own words, you hit the ground running and you keep running. So we're still.
But you agree with me that for the first time last week, I saw a report by his, you know, his essay on social media by Onanuga. In his report on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, one of the successes recorded last week, it emerged the best in the whole world because of the level of investment, and it's because investors have confidence in the economy now. If you are lead by example, and you must have integrity. And I think so far so good. His influence is going to help Nigerians. I know it's a slow growth. It's going to, the fundamental reforms is carrying out is painful. I believe before the end of the year, people will see signs, people will see the gains, and that is why we said, okay, there's a need for restructuring of these loans. Money should be given to the grassroots. We can use some of these ministries, you know, and deploy these resources so that at the end of the day, they are very active and all that.
All right, fair enough. I was saying the other day, these days when I, you know, invite persons to the program here, APC members, PDP members, they all seem to be singing praises, and you know, there's always that question of if there is still an opposition, because but that being said, there are people who still hold the president accountable. You know, the other day someone was complaining that egg is now 150 naira. You know, there's a lot of complaints, but on the flip side, like I said, some also bring out the other side. But on this issue of moving offices, some persons are now saying, if this ideology or this idea can be put towards business, like you called it, business parts of the economy, why not also others? So they say, if you are going to take FAN and CBN parts of it to Lagos, shouldn't you take the Niger Delta Ministry to Niger Delta? You know, people are trying to say that it should start, you know, employing that idea across board, and not just, you know, for the ones that somehow coincide with Lagos. So do you think it's something that you should start considering, if not for anything, to show the public, or to be seen as being fair or even across board?
Like, you know, there must be a strategy plan in everything you are doing. And I will still fall back on what I told you earlier on. Mr. President is the best position to take any decision that will be impactful. Let us not trivialize this issue. Let us not look at this as if maybe we are trying to apply sentiment over it. Well, it's a good thing if you move the Ministry of the Niger Delta to, you know, one of these. Where are you going to locate the office? Is it in Rivers? Is it in Bayelsa Delta or whatever? You know, that will attract more attention. But if you have an unrestricted capital where you can deploy resources, and there's a need for regular checks and balances. We have the NPDC, we have the NNDC, we have a lot of, you know, agencies under the government that are thriving. But again, I think the idea about governance, people are looking, it's not about offices, it's about implementation. Okay, like in this age of social media, or digital media, you find out almost everything is online, and you can always connect from every part of the world. So it does not matter. But again, there are things that you need to do to apply speed. And at the same time, you need to convince your investors or those you want to attract investment. There's a need for you to understand that there's face value. You want to sell a product, people must see it, and they need to apply speed. But here, you are coming to a place, you are coming to Abuja, you move from one office to there's no physical evidence to show that yes, you are in business, and there's a lot of bureaucracies. So we need to open up the economy. So if at the end of the day people say, well, if you move FAN to Lagos, part of CBN to Lagos, give us Niger Delta, those in the north will start requesting, I know it will grant the economy. Let us not put too much pressure on this man. One step at a time. I understand the cry of the Arewa Consultative Forum is a good step that at least you should speak out. But then we should look at the realities on ground. Abuja is not safe. Kaduna is not safe. Most parts of the north today is not safe, if not for the fact that if you go to the northeast, for instance, in Borno State, you and I agree that this man has done wonderfully well to create a room for investment in Borno. Borno is almost safe now, because last week they had this local government election where I saw the governor voting, coming out in high spirit, and even a female member appeared, rather a contestant won the seat of chairmanship in one of these local government areas. Why did that happen? Because he opened up, he fought these bandits, and with federal might and his own personal effort, he succeeded. But here in Abuja, at the seat of power, we have, bandits continue to infiltrate. And that is a threat. It's a wrong signal. Because people, some of these people outside the country, they read Nigerian newspaper, they want to see what is happening. So if Abuja is not too attractive, do you scare away people with all these negative reports? So let's try somewhere else. Lagos, if really we want it, let's keep Abuja safe. Then more things will happen.
All right, I want to end the program on that note of insecurity. So we'll definitely circle back to it. But before then, let's take a look at some other issues. We're talking about departments or agencies being moved to Lagos. But let's also talk about some of the, will I say, U-turns that the president has made or this administration has made, particularly, and some of it he has been praised for, some others have condemned him. Speaking particularly about the humanitarian ministry, one of my guests the other day was on the program, and he said that the president's first mistake was appointing Ms. Betta Edu, even though we can say she's innocent until proven guilty, but these allegations and this scandal is not something that we should expect of the government. That being said, there is now a lot of talk and a lot of conversation about that ministry. Some persons say outright that it is not necessary and that it's something that the vice president's office can handle, or the presidency itself, and it should be scrapped because the current minister who has been suspended is under investigation. The one before her is under investigation. The ministry directors are being called now. The NSIP head was also suspended. So I'd like to get your thoughts on what you feel can be done about this ministry that has somehow become sort of a headache to whoever is leading the nation. How should it be handled? What do you think is the way forward?
I love this question. Look, let us get our facts right. The lady came in, with a lot of expectations, because one, she's very young, and we see her as a promising youth, somebody that will, put square pegs in square holes and all that, because we believe she has capacity, coming from the background that she has a local network and all that. She did very well during the campaign of Mr. President, being the APC woman leader and all that. But coming to the office as a minister is a different ball game. I think our politicians will get used to one thing. We have administration, and we have policies that will be marketable to people and all that. So when you are coming into office, it's expected that after the retreat, you sit down with the management team. And the key players there are the directors, the PAMSECs, and you need to sit down to hear from them, what should I do and how should we work as a team to succeed? is very important. Team building is key. Set up a team. Allow the process to roll on its own. But whereas you come in, you say, no, I'm changing the rules, I'm bringing my own team, we are going to have problem. Because these people are around for the past 20, 30 years. They know how these things work locally. So with this in place, what is expected is for you to sit down, ask questions. And she started displaying her appetite for spending, showing excess power, and at the same time, because she's connected to the seat of power, she's seen herself as untouchable. Meanwhile, that ministry is very sensitive. It's too much. For me, you should split it into 3 parts and give some people some of these ministries. I'll come to that. But again, when she came out and found out, yes, there's a lot of money here, even in reserve, then she started requesting for funds, and it's embarrassing what happened in the end, because Mr. President so trusts her. And betraying the trust of Mr. President is one of the things that hurts badly. For me, I don't see Mr. President wanting to fire you because of minor mistakes. No, let it be stated that, they must carry out a forensic investigation. So many allegations, so many things were discovered about Betta. It's unfortunate. I think sometimes ago I spoke well about the lady, because I see her as somebody who, I see her as a face model of this administration, because one, she has that capacity, she has that look, she has everything. But again, beneath that, she got carried away, and that is why she fell into that trap. Remember, you can be trusted with money, but how you spend it matters. Now, going forward, I believe, because during the previous administration, the same thing happened. Monies were given out, palliatives were given out, school feeding programs when schools are not in session. And these are things, and she even gave out some of these, food items. Some of these governors were housed them, refusing to give it to the people. I don't know their interest. So a lot happened. I think it's all about monitoring, supervision, at the same time identify those in needs. And for you, I think I would advise Mr. President, one, you can separate this. We have the Ministry of Women Affairs under Her Excellency Barrister Oju Kennedy Hondenye. I think what she's doing well there, from what I've seen, she's focused, dynamic, and she's on point. She never compromised. Based on that, I will want a situation whereby you take away maybe a section of that ministry, since you are talking about women empowerment at the grassroots, assign her to, social investment, and give her instructions on what to do. This is what we want to achieve.
So are you speaking about Ms. Edo herself?
Yes.
She should be assigned to...
No, not Edo. I'm talking about the Ministry of Women Affairs this time around. Okay. You split the humanitarian affairs ministry maybe into 3 parts. Some people take care of the IDP, some people take care of empowerment and all that. All right. Okay? And when you do that, she's interfacing directly with the women. And what she needs to do, very simple, you set up coordinators in all the local governments across. And like I said, this thing is very simple since there's money available. These women, as they have cooperative groups, you use them. Train them on skill acquisitions. What is their strength in each of the local government? Now, the coordinators give you weekly report by setting up maybe a WhatsApp group for them. These are the people I'm interfacing with. And under this ministry, we are giving out to each woman, because it's going to be transparent. If you are giving us, say, 50,000 to every woman that undergo that skills acquisition program or whatever, okay, we are giving you 30,000 naira as grant, but 20,000 naira as loan. We want to see you recover this money or pay back this money in 6 months, this 20,000 naira. I trust Nigerian women, they are very, very, very enterprising. When you assign this role and you appoint these coordinators with this strategy, honestly, all this we are talking about, money missing here and there, it will disappear, because it's transparent enough for you to see.
So all you need to do, very much believe in the empowerment.
Of course, it's because that is why
I just want to liken it to a situation I saw over the weekend on Twitter. Someone tweeted at the House of Rep member in Ibadan, the popular entrepreneur, talking about Akin Alabi, and he was talking about how someone was trying to sell off a sewing machine that they had gotten from an empowerment program. And so he was saying that there should be more vetting and all of that. So is that aspect, is that a big issue at all?
Why would selling the sewing machine is based on two things? It's not about giving that person sewing machine. I've seen it in Kano now, when this man, former senatorial candidate for APC, Kano Central, Izora, because I was with him when he was carrying out empowerment program. The first thing he did was train these women in particular skills. That is one. Soap making, Vaseline and all that, cream. So if you train them, you buy them these products, I bet you no woman will want to sell her asset because she considers it as personal asset. Whereas trainings are not carried out. You didn't train me, I don't know about it, and you give me a sewing machine. Some people were even giving computers. They'll sell them because they don't have the knowledge of sewing. But let me tell you the truth. All the women, most of the women in our local areas today, if you train them, especially in sewing, none of them will sell their sewing machine. I can guarantee that for you. If you give them this sewing machine, and you give them take-off grant, give them 6 months, they will not depend on anybody again. All they need is training, training and training. Then assign them to a coordinator that will monitor them, not too far away from them. That is why I said it's good you use cooperative society. That is one. It's good you look out for those who have the need, the desire to be trained. And let it not come cheap, let it not come free. Okay, you have a bank account, pay a token of 2,000 naira to register. Upon payment of that, it shows that you are desirous of going into this training. So those involved in capacity building, that money, 2,000 naira each person, is for them. But the product, rather the machine and the grant you are giving them, is for the beneficiaries. It's not about 1 day, 2 day training. It should take 2-3 weeks. So at the end of the day, if they are certified, you can even give them certificate that yes, you have graduated, they have graduated, now they are on their own. So whereas this type of practice, or rather is not carried out, there's no way they will benefit directly, and there's no way they will put it to use. And that is why I say, look, the job there is too much under the humanitarian. We know what happened in the past. There was nothing like that took place, I can tell you. And that is why even when they invited the lady Sadia, what happened? The first money to recover, you and I know about it, about 50 billion, because that money was domiciled somewhere. It was not put to use. And more monies will be recovered. But the best way is, for me, from the research I carried out, within the local governments across the nation, it's easy to manage, especially women and young people. It's very easy. Train them, give them capital. They will surprise you, and you see that these complaints will go down a little bit. All right.
Just to end this particular issue, some people say what we are seeing in the humanitarian ministry is child's play and what could be happening elsewhere. Do you think there's any truth to that, or is there something specific about this ministry that just tempts people, so to speak?
Anyway, I don't want to cast aspersion on some of these appointees in the federal government cabinet. But again, you see, they say one bad apple spoils the bunch. It's a trigger, and it's a wake-up call to all the ministers, because you should understand that if you are found wanting, you will not be spared. That is one. We have the coordinating, or rather we have the special advisor to the president on policy coordination, Hadiza Bala Usman. She's working around the clock, and she's taking notes and reports for Mr. President. It is expected that at the end of every quarter, there should be a report from each ministry. It's going to be transparent. She don't need to run around the office. All she needs to do is to set up monitors, or rather appoint people that will help her monitor all the MDs. Whereas we have found wanting, you'll be shown the exit door. That is one. Then number two, there should be a ceiling, a limit towards a minister can appropriate. It's very important. I don't see what
you mean in terms of funds?
In terms of approvals. Okay. That is go through a process. You get the point. That is why we have the NFIU, we have the EFCC, we have the ICPC. NFIU should be saddled with that responsibility, especially disbursement. If it's above 10 million naira, it must go through maybe an executive approval. But how come she'll sit down, raise a voucher of 585 million naira, you pay? No. If you do that, definitely you are going to abuse the process. So if a ceiling is set for each minister for approvals, I think it will help in a long way, even if it means seeking approval 3 times in a week. If it's above 10 million naira, you have to write for request for approval. Or if you maintain your ceiling of 10 million naira per purchase, I think it will help a long way in calming these situations we find ourselves.
That's an interesting suggestion there. To our viewers, our phone lines are now open. If you want to call in to make a contribution or ask a question. Sorry, I couldn't take your calls earlier. Moving over now to the Supreme Court. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. I believe we talked about it before in probably our last and you spoke about some of them. Now they've all come out, and to the best of my knowledge, there is not a single one has overturned an election, so to speak. Every person who initially won at the polls was eventually cleared, so to speak, by the Supreme Court. What's your take on all of this? And another interesting phenomenon that came with these judgments was that the opposition members who won, they were all thanking the president. And, it raised questions. Why is the head of the executive being thanked because the judiciary, did its job? People are wondering what's going on there.
I think it's about confidence building. And at the same time having that mindset that somebody must give superior orders and all that. Remember, it started from the previous government under President Buhari. I must give former president the credit. During his time, we had an election in Anambra, Abga won. During his time, we have the one in Oshu where Mr. President came from, Adeleke won, Edo State, and so many other states like that, because one, due process was followed and people were allowed to freely choose who should lead them. I use that word, freely choose who should lead them. So even if there were disputes, the tribunals and all that, cases were filed, in the end, justice was done because it is in the open. INEC, well, even if they don't have their powers are a little bit limited, but then they did a fantastic job, even if we continue to query them. Now, coming to the cases at the Supreme Court, yes, we saw, for instance, that of Kano, which was overturned twice by the Tribunal and the Court of Appeal. No, it's glaring that at the elections, it was declared NMPP won. So if at that level, INEC announced the winner, and you run to court claiming that, no, this thing must be overturned, I think you are not being fair to the voters. Yes, you cannot hold NMPP responsible for INEC misdeeds, so to speak. INEC did a fantastic job. We all witnessed it. And going to the tribunal to, I think at that point, even the APC candidate governor, even throwing the towel by congratulating the governor-elect at that time. Then reversing it, I think it's not healthy for our democracy. I think at that level, the Supreme Court sat down and examined the whole situations, because that is for me the climax of the whole issues. They studied the documents and everything and found out, well, you need to be fair, and at the same time justice needs to be done. So if you check around, the one for Plateau, Kano, Zamfara, all other states, the cases that were brought before the Supreme Court, there was fairness, and the Supreme Court sat down, they checked everything and found that yes, these people actually won election. And I'll give you the one for Nasra, for instance, where this man won. Abdul Sule, you know what happened afterwards. People are reacting because the expectation is that the PDP candidate won. But again, Supreme Court sat down and studied the whole document and found out, no, this is the duly elected governor of the state. So I think by that, you give credits to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu by not influencing the outcome of the Supreme Court.
But normally he shouldn't.
That is what we're saying.
Does he? Let me put it this way: does he have the powers to do
yes.
that? Yes. It's just
previous days. You remember during the PDP administration. I'm not trying to castigate PDP, but then our democracy, very young, Obasanjo, Atiku time, and up to Jonathan, people sit down, write script and say, okay, go, you have won the election, go, I will make you governor, you know, bragging that, yes, I'm in the seat of power. No, gradually, what happened, instead of making people too powerful, let's build our institutions so that they can function.
But people are asking, like, is there need to praise him for something he should be doing? They say, some have even heard, liken it to a situation where, let's say, heavily built man who is 7 feet tall with muscles, and you know, people keep praising him. Thank you for not beating us. Thank you for not beating us. When we know that you beating us is against the law, you shouldn't be beating us. So, is this sending a wrong message to be thanking the president? Is there an implication that the president could have?
No. Let's look at it this way. He's the CNC, he's the number one person. Yes, his body language should tell you that, yes, I'm not comfortable as a politician. I need my party to win in some of these states so that in 2027, I'll cost to victory and all that. No, that's a kind of system will not help us. We need the opposition. So to check ourselves. But at the same time, remember, there are some states you go, you know, I don't want to mention names, people who are duly qualified to run for office will be dropped. For those that have the money, they are unpopular, but because they have the capital, they give them the ticket. And you see, they begin, you know, the outcome will not be healthy because you want to, you know, impose somebody on the people. That is why they say, let the votes count. And it's about, you know, the voices, the ambience of the people, what they want. That all these things we're enjoying today, I must still give credit to Buhari, because towards the end of his administration, we know what happened when he said, yes, he wants to make sure we don't experience money politics. Go to the grassroots, campaign vigorously. If you win, you won. Okay? But a situation whereby you allow money in the hands of these politicians, of course, they'll buy over a lot of people. So for me, let us go back to that election. Think about it, the March and February elections. It was fairly contested and the winners won. So going to the court against, like, you know, delay tactics. You have lost, and you go back to the drawing board and find out why you lost. Yes, at a certain point, people compromise and, okay, let us form alliance with other political parties. Let us step down for A, B, or C. But then you can't compare to what we witnessed recently in Kogi State, where, you know, I don't want to talk about it, the cases in court, but then we should be beginning to, you know, have faith in our institutions, because when that is done, it makes it easier for Mr. President to administer. But even if you come to thank him, what has he done? The institutions are thriving. EFCC is working, ICPs, all these organs of government should operate independently, and you see growth. But whereas you run here and there seeking for favor, I don't think it will be healthy for us. So thanking him, well, is good, being your leader, but then 2027, everybody to his tent.
Fair enough. But I think one final question on this, speaking about institutions. We know that with the exception of governorship and presidential, other contentions end at the Court of Appeal. Now, let's take an instance, particularly
especially in the cases of the National Assembly members.
Now, Plateau States had pretty much the State House of Assembly overturned. All the PDP members lost their seats. Let me not say all, I can't confirm that, but majority of them did. Same with the Senate and the House of Reps or thereabouts. The seats were lost. Even one of President Tinubu's ministers, former governor, has now returned, you know, to take back a seat that he initially lost but was overturned.
Yes.
Now, the issue is that most of those overturning, so to speak, was on a basis for which the governor's election itself was also heading the same way. Now, if not for the extra layer, so to speak, of the Supreme Court, the governor could have also found himself out. Some persons are saying some level of injustice, and that's to say that the Supreme Court now actively quashed the very rationale that was used to remove all those persons. where do those persons go from there, knowing that the highest court in the land actually said this is not how this should have gone, but now they don't have that option? How do they move forward and be able to,
you see,
to still come together?
Is a constitutional matter. We have the NGC, we have members of the Bar bench, and we have the executive governor of Plateau State. For me, is to consult widely with the NGC and at the same time major stakeholders, because by virtue of what happened at the Court of Appeal where these cases were overturned, there's no fairness there. We don't support that, and they still have an opportunity to explore, but it begins with His Excellency the Governor of Plateau State, who should initiate that process and so seek for review of the judgment. It's possible. I'm not a lawyer, but again, I spoke with some of my friends. They mentioned that yes, the governor has that power to execute the process towards helping out in recalling these people. But again, everything stops at his desk. Like I said, you must consult the Nigeria Judicial Council, and I believe the way things are going right now, I see light at the end of the tunnel. Some of these judgments can be reviewed and be overturned, and whereas it's not possible, well, all what he should do is work with those on board, and let there be team spirit, because I believe you are all from one community. We are not from different planets. It's all about alliances and consultations. And what we want to see is not because a particular party should dominate the state assembly. No, we want a situation whereby everybody has a chance to serve. We have very good people around, even in the opposition party. You should allow that to thrive. And from what the example, or rather the leadership style of Mr. President today, that is allowing people, the votes to count, and for, the Supreme Court to take their own decision, operate independently. We should see that permeate across all sectors of the economy. We want a healthy system, away from politicking. Let's talk about good governance now. For me, I think we should not talk too much about that. His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau State, should hit the ground running, consult widely with the NGC, and I believe you will have his way at the end of the day.
Fair enough. So, like I said before, I wanted us to end on the particular matter of insecurity, particularly in Abuja here. There are a lot of angles to this. I'd like to get your general opinions as to how a particular section of this has rounded up. That is the issue of Nabiha and her family, the late Nabiha. Hearing their account, there's a little tussle now between the family and security forces, because there's a narrative being passed that they were rescued, and the family is saying we were not rescued. The ransom was paid and we were dropped. So all of that being said, you already made a point of noting that Abuja is not as safe as it used to be. I'd really like to get your thoughts. How did we get here, and what do you think is the next step in addressing these issues?
Well, like you rightly point out, I will also add my voice in joining to commiserate with the family over the deaths, over the loss of Nabiha. I went through the details this morning. I watched and listened to the interview and what transpired, how it happened, or from when the abductors came into the compound, and Bogo rather forced their way in to abduct this family. It's very unfortunate. And from what we've learned, is more of a coordinated approach. They had it all planned out. And it's not as if they are too intelligent enough. But again, it's about having a strategic plan. This is what we want to do. And they have senior players, or rather they have their leaders in the bush waiting for them. So whoever is brought on board, it's all about negotiation and all that. It doesn't matter whether rich or poor or whatever. Now, it comes to mind one thing. we shouldn't be too reactionary at any point in time. And that is why there's a need for synergy between the Nigerian police and other security agencies. The military, the military, the army, rather the military, the navy, the air force. We want to see a synergy in tackling this insecurity issue. Apart from that, I want to see a situation whereby the Nigerian police and the Civil Defense Corps should work in synergy in policing some of these, wide areas. Because if you check, the victims, according to what we heard, they trekked for almost 8 hours inside the bush within Buhari. To trek 8 hours inside the bush overnight is something that should baffle everybody. That means they have camps located inside the forest and all that. So what stops the security agencies in carrying out maybe a research? We're in the age of technology, where even your mobile phone today can be used to track down wherever you are. So I think the most important thing is for us to believe in the security agencies which we have, especially the Nigeria police, because over the years there's this complaint of being underfunded, and at the same time there's this case of what do I call compromise. Arrests are carried out. People, these kidnappers, upon being arrested, charged to court and all that, 6 months later you see them walking out in freedom, and you begin to wonder what must have happened. So that means we need to strengthen our laws in that regard. Then number two, in other crimes, abductors sentenced to either life imprisonment, or maybe you'll be committed to death sentence. So if we strengthen our laws, it will help. But at the same time, as Nigerians, we should not be quick to condemn. Let us look at the basics, the fundamentals. What are really responsible for this? Yes, we have idle hands. People are not educated. People are not gainfully employed, and there are some incidences in which some people, even within the rank and file of the Nigerian police, were dismissed from the force without benefits and all that. So if you put all these things together, you are breeding criminal elements, and you know that you are living dangerously. They will fight back, because if they are affected, they will look for means of survival. They have families to protect, they have relations and all that. So this peer pressure that is weighing down these people will force them to take a rational decision. So I think it's a holistic approach for me. We should engage, especially those at the local level. The local government system should be strengthened, because if you have government at the local level that is empowering those at that level, all these things will be reduced to the barest minimum, because we grew up from local areas. We know how we benefited from the local government system through sponsorship and all that. So I think the local government administrators, rather the governors in each of the states of the federation, should do more through local government to carry out reforms and empower these people. Because you go to some places, they operate joint account. There's a particular ceiling the administrator can spend per day, per week and all that. So they don't have powers to execute projects. They don't have power to empower people. Most times if you go there, they are not in offices. So if you empower those at the grassroots, especially at the local government level, believe me, we'll be reducing this thing to the barest minimum. And we have seen reports from the Nigerian police whereby some of these kidnappers, upon being interviewed, they will tell you this ransom paid, they are giving a little fraction of it. 100 million, you give somebody 30,000, 40,000, which means there's somebody collecting this money somewhere, and that person is highly placed. So we should be able to, think about maybe forgiving ourselves if at all there's a wrong, if at all we commit any offense, or rather we wrong some people. Then at the same time, you go to some of these correctional centers. For no offense, you see some people are in incarceration. There are a lot of them are waiting trial 2-3 years, are waiting trial. So what are you building? You are building you are heaping more pressure on these young people. So I advised, one, the government should do a periodic check on some of these correctional centers. The legal advocates should carry out some of these services. We call it pro bono services. Let them help those in correctional centers to gain freedom.
All right.
Reintegrate them back into the society. But above all, we need to support and strengthen the Nigerian police, because it's a situation whereby police have to buy his uniform, the police is under-equipped, the police is poorly paid. There is no motivation, even fueling, to fuel the vehicle become a problem.
Right.
There's a need for a holistic approach so that we can have a better society.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Garba. We've run out of time now. I wish we could go on and address some more issues, but perhaps that will be at a later date. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. I've been speaking with Mr. Garba on issues of the state of the nation, the fight against insecurity, the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, movement of agencies, some parts of agencies to Lagos and other issues, and we've done quite some justice to these issues. Don't forget, the POLITY reaches you live every weekday, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. right here on KAFTAN TV, channel 124 on Startimes. Do join us tomorrow once again. Bye for now. I am Amadin Ogbewe.